Hi, everyone, and welcome to Talks Within the Nine-Sided Circle. It's Sunday again, and here we are. We got a whole bunch of us here today. First of which, you got your two hosts, me, Nor Kyle, and
me, Mushtaq Ali.
Yeah. So if you're watching us on YouTube, which you may be on the replay, instead of here with us live, thanks for joining us. And we'd love it if you could subscribe to our channel. We're always offering new content every week, sometimes twice a week. We have ongoing programming off of YouTube as well. You can find us on Facebook. But for here, if you are enjoying our content or if you're not enjoying our content, we'd love the feedback. Please leave us a comment, give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down. So there you go. Anything to add, Mushtaq?
Yes, as a matter of fact, for this week and this week only, we have a special. If anybody subscribes to our channel, I will put up a special video, heretofore unseen by the public, that will actually be practical and useful, but I'm only going to do it if we get a subscription.
Yeah, just one?
I'd be happy for 30 or 40, 50, 60, 100, 1,000, 1 million, but I'll settle for one.
Yeah, yep. We're working towards that 200, and we're getting there. We're plugging away. So, do we have any other updates?
Life is weird.
Yes.
Life continues to be weird.
Yeah.
Life is weird here in the Bay Area.
Yeah, we're in the United States for those who are touching base and aren't necessarily familiar with us. Yep, so we're dealing with the plague.
Yes, we are dealing with the weird plague.
Mm-hmm.
And the stupid people.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I have friends from all across the spectrums, and I have a couple of friends who they're very nice, but they're also very right-wing, and they're not very bright.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the conspiracy types, and they make these arguments like, Fauci was roommates with Bill Gates, who was this, who was that, and therefore we cannot trust the vaccine.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's like, this is what happens when you don't teach critical thinking in your schools. But be that as it may, one way or the other, it's all going to get sorted out. And if we're just making room for the cockroaches, so be it.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind reincarnating as a cockroach. You know, cockroaches ruling the world.
Not happen. Aaron says they're in charge. Yep.
So as I understand it, they're dependent on us. So, you know, they're not really going to be our inheritors.
The cockroach has been around much, much longer than we have. Right now, they find us convenient, but there are cockroaches that live in the wild and never come into contact with humans. There are a number of different species of cockroaches. Some of them are big, some of them are tiny. Some of them like to live in your house with you. Some of them like to live in swamps.
Mm-hmm.
So I have faith in the lowly cockroach as the inheritor of the planet. Though I'm actually rooting for octopuses, octopods.
I think, yeah.
They've settled on octopuses.
But the trouble is that octopuses are a little bit more threatened, but they're cuter than cockroaches.
I personally don't mind either, as long as there aren't cockroaches in my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I'd like to give the world to the raccoons. I kind of want something with hands.
Hands have not done us very good so far.
So that gets us back to the body.
Yes.
And our topic for today, some of you may already know, is embodiment. Being in the body, residing in the body, awareness of the body. So Mushtaq, what do you want to say about that today?
Okay. So, I was giving a lecture back in 1986. It was a lecture to a bunch of spiritual people. They were very spiritual. And I said to them, with malice aforethought, look, you want to empty a room of spiritual people in less than 60 seconds? Just tell everybody that they're going to have to break a sweat. They'll be gone. Flash, out the door. It's gotten a little bit better since then, but there is this disconnect between spirituality and embodiment. The major religions all think that being in the body is a bad thing. They even use phrases like being in the body, like we are a ghost in a machine. And we are not a ghost in a machine. I utterly deny that we are a ghost in a machine. Think about it. The main model for human beings is you are a spirit in a meat puppet. And this is one of the reasons that we've gotten in a lot of trouble. You know, we're making jokes about cockroaches taking over the earth, but because we deny our own physicality, we don't feel like we have to take care of our home. And this planet is the only home we got. And I don't think they're going to let us out into the galaxy if we can't even take care of one lousy planet. So, here's the thing. Your body is the only interface that you have. It is the only tool that you have for perceiving the world and for perceiving the inner world and for perceiving higher spiritual truths. I submit to you that you cannot experience a higher spiritual truth without being embodied. I realize this is a bold statement, but I think we may be able to make an argument for it. So here's a question. Can you do anything without your body? What can you do without a body? Feel free to answer if you have an answer.
Cherie says, think. Aaron says, how would we know?
You cannot think without your body. I mean, where does thinking go on if not in the brain, in and around the brain, and in and around the body itself, the body as a whole? And the answer for Aaron is you can't know, because there is nothing that we perceive right now that we do not perceive through the organs and senses of our bodies.
Aaron asks further, where am I without my body?
Yes.
It looks like Cherie has unmuted herself. What are you thinking, Cherie?
I was just thinking that you really can't separate those things, isn't it? The mind, body, spirit thing. We tend to separate it to try and qualify things, but
yes, but you can't.
You can't. It's the same thing. It's the same being.
Yes. My old philosophy professor insisted that consciousness was a continuum, and it was a continuum that on one pole of it was pure being, and on the other pole of it was pure matter. But you can't separate the two. It's like if we took your consciousness out of your body would just be meat. There would be no you there. If we took your body out of your consciousness, same thing. You can't separate them. You can't even find your consciousness in your body to remove it. So, you cannot do anything without being embodied. Now, English sucks for talking about this because we talk about being in the body as if we're a ghost in the machine.
Right, right. That's the challenge. Yeah.
So, what is being embodied? How do you know you're embodied?
I would say because I can sense things.
Yes. And it should be the first thing that you sense is your own physicality. Now, years and years and years ago, so many years ago, I hate to even think about it sometime, but it's back when I was young and my hair was curly. And I had a sparkle in my eye that far back, which is to say somewhere close to the middle of the last century. I had a Tai Chi teacher. He was very smart. And he said to the class one day, he said, "All right, class, I want you to hold your hand here. Now I want you to move it up here. What do you notice?" And what everybody noticed was they could perceive the beginning of the movement. They could perceive the end of the movement. But in between was empty. There was no perception. And he said, Tai Chi's whole purpose is to have an infinite point of awareness between the beginning and the end of the movement, so that your entire movement is informed with your awareness, which is why he said we move so slowly to start, so that you can begin to get your presence in your body. Now that was incredibly useful to me, and has stuck with me ever since as like one of the pivotal things that somebody said to me. You know, we all have a few of those. Somebody said X, Y, or Z, and you go, wow, that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. This understanding led me to notice that there were lots of places in my physicality that I had no awareness of. And that led me to discover a term. I wish I would have invented this term, but I didn't. But it describes what I'm talking about perfectly, called sensory motor amnesia. These are the places within your movement arcs and within your body that you have zero awareness of. And anybody here who has done any kind of working with bodies knows about this phenomena. You get somebody to try. Cherie was doing this to me the other day when we were talking. When was that? Yesterday? No, Friday. Yesterday, Saturday. One of these days. Yeah. She was talking about, you know, putting your hand like this, and then, this way, and then crossing the arms and doing this, and then rolling them around and bringing them up and straightening the arms out. If I straighten my arms out, I knock my monitor over, so I got to watch out. But Cherie has plenty of room, so I'm going to make her video active, and you can see what we're talking about. And she observed that some people can do this on one side and can't do it on the other, which I find interesting.
interesting to watch all of you guys do this, but all I just said was place the back of your hands together, cross your wrists, link your fingers, keep palm to palm. Slowly bring the hands forward towards your body and then out to straighten your arms. How far can you actually straighten your arms? And then bring it back. And then redo it from the other side. So you cross over from the other side. So whatever you did, mine was right over left. Now I'm doing left over right. Link fingers, palm to palm. What this is actually showing is the movement in the shoulder. So for some people, they don't have any capacity to roll the shoulder out. And so that means all the flexors of the shoulder, bringing the shoulder in, the chest muscles and all the muscles underneath the armpit, they're internally rotating the shoulder so strongly that the external rotators on the back of the shoulder can't rotate the arm out in the opposite movement. So the degrees of straightening actually inform me what is that person's capacity in each shoulder. So being able to watch this movement, and you can see that the shoulders are moving and the elbows are moving. So if the elbows and the hands have to over move and do the movement for the shoulder, that's why it feels so awkward. But even just getting people just to do this, and the deep resistance, Mushtaq and I were talking about, that people have to doing something where they're not coordinated. They just feel really awkward and they don't like feeling silly, but it's the same movement as doing that or that. So you're doing this unwinding or bringing the hand back. So being able to wind and unwind, it's the same movement, but two hands together, because then the structure is informing you which one is tighter than the other. So yeah, being able to do all of those teacup drills, all the winding movements, that informs you of what you can do. So when I actually show someone it's just a figure 8, they still don't get it. And the brain, if it doesn't have the neural system and the association fibers to actually check in with other parts of the brain, oh, the movement is just like this, it takes them a really long time to get the pattern of that movement. It's a very simple movement. So before you can go into complex, it's very nice to go into very simple movement. So that's just informed you about something about your own body. So if anybody actually yells at me, which has happened in the last week, we were talking about this, and was really deeply resistant, a highly trained person, it also can inform you about how the ego rears its head and just wow. And you just think, whoo, did I stay open to learning? Did I actually allow myself to be taught something? Am I listening? Or I'm just waiting for the moment of pause when I can actually speak over the top of the other person. But I haven't actually engaged in that other person. So that was one of those things, the capacity to embody that movement and just be with it, be with something difficult. That was the challenge.
Yeah. So, in the work, in various aspects of the work, you have, I mean, amongst the Sufis, some places, you have what the Orientalists referred to as the dervish exercises, which were physical movements that they would do often in a rhythmic manner. You have Gurdjieff bringing his dances to the West. All of these were exercises designed to get you more embodied and to break the habits that lead to sensory motor amnesia. Now, we all know about the rub the belly and pat the head, right? You all know about that. Now, can everybody do that? Rub the belly, pat the head. Now, can you switch hands and rub the belly with the other hand and pat the head with the first hand? Harder on one side than another? Who found it harder on one side than another? So we have 1, 2, can't see everybody, but
Most people.
most people.
Some people who have practiced it are having easier time.
Yeah. So if you've practiced this, then you've developed the neurology and you have moved your awareness into an area that in other people have a little bit of sensory motor amnesia. I find this a lot. The martial arts that I teach are very symmetrical in that if you do something with your dominant hand lead, you have to be able to do it with your non-dominant hand as well, and do it as well with your non-dominant hand. So any movement that you do on one side, you got to be able to do on the other. Any movement sequence you do on one side, you got to be able to do on the other. And this is another way that you discover sensory motor amnesia. So, you've heard us talk about the void practice. Most of you who are sitting here with me know the void practice. Here's something that is interesting about it. The void practice gets your awareness in your body. And everybody here has learned the first stage of that practice. And at its culmination, your awareness is entirely in your whole body, from the tips of your toes to the top of your head and to the ends of your fingers, so that you are aware of your whole body at the same time. This, we believe, is a desired state, to be able to have this awareness and to have practiced this awareness so that it comes naturally. So if you were to just pay attention to your body for a second, what can you become aware of and what is hard to be aware of? Some people, it's really easy for them to be aware of their knees, but not their calf muscles. Or to be aware of their shoulders, but not their hips. So scan through your body and see what you naturally can have your awareness in and what draws a blank. Now ask yourself, how would it affect your life if you were able to have your entire physicality imbued with your awareness, so that you can feel, sense the entirety of your body? And this gets us to our senses. How many senses do we have? Any guesses? How many of you thought 5 senses?
So Aaron says 6. Mustaqim says 5. Shri says 6. And Shri also shared the thought that she feels she would have more confidence in the way she moves if she had more full body awareness.
Yep, that is definitely the case. So, science keeps discovering more senses. Our common model of 5 senses is 2,000, approximately 400 years old. Aristotle is the one who we know codified the five senses. And they're basically a very non-scientific way of looking at our senses. They're like way too general. So, modern science knows that there are many more than five senses. And even the five senses that we usually think about, which are sight, hearing, taste, touch, 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one am I forgetting? Smell, that's right, smell. Thank you, Zainab. I'm not happy with smell right now because I discovered something died and went to hell in my refrigerator last night. We have discovered that yogurt that has died smells a lot like dirty socks that have been lost under a bed for about 5 months. Really unpleasant. So we now know that what we call sight has at least two components. Hearing, taste has several components. And then we have things like proprioception, right? Proprioception is an incredibly important sense. And it is our sense of where our body is. Everybody do this. Put your hands out like this. Close your eyes. Touch your fingers to the tip of your nose. See? Easy. You're able to do that through proprioception, knowing where your body is in space. If you didn't have this, and some people don't have it very well, you'd like be sticking your finger in your eye or in your ear or up your nose, all of these things. But for most of us, closing our eyes and just going, boom, there we have it. This is an incredibly important sense that has been utterly neglected up until very, very recently. We didn't even know what it was for the most part. Nocioception. That is your sense of pain.
Nocioception, yeah.
Yeah.
Nociception, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I never say these words right. Or
No
I say
worries.
them right and everybody else says them wrong. Anyway, yeah, your body has a sense of pain that has nothing to do with touch. Just as proprioception has nothing to do with touch. When you're moving your fingers towards your nose, you are not touching anything. You don't feel any touch until you get to your nose. And there's a whole bunch of senses that science is beginning to notice actually exist. Most of which are very, very embodied. You don't really get to experience them unless you're really, as we say in the New Age world, in your body. Though that's the wrong way to say it. So, what if some of the development of some of these senses were nearly essential to awakening? Answer me this really quick. Which way is the core of the Earth? Yep. We don't even have to think about that because we can feel the pull of gravity pulling us towards the center of the Earth. And this involves probably several senses, but our vestibular senses in particular. So what if I told you that the more refinement you developed in your proprioception, the easier it would be for you to maintain the awake state? How's that for something bold? And what if I told you that the more awareness you have suffusing your entire physicality, the easier it is for you to achieve and maintain the awake state?
Go ahead, Sheree. I saw you unmute yourself if you have any thoughts to share.
Yeah, I had a thought about the way you're saying the pursuit of proprioception and what we experience in movement and body work is the people having that amnesia because they cope with things that are in their head versus the actual feeling of things. So the pursuit of things that are really violent or really strong sensation in something, extreme sports and things, for some people I can see that it's because they just can't get the feeling. So you've got to make it harder, more aggressive, more painful, more everything before people even feel that. And the practice of what we're doing is so subtle and fine that it makes people really angry and upset when they can't feel it, and they just can't feel it and they get so frustrated. So I was thinking about that we're seeing in our culture, this pursuit of extreme whatever, because they have no sense of feeling anything subtle and soft and kind and tender. And maybe we should be promoting that more and more. I see that more and more in the practice that I do in the studio and the clinic, that to bring someone and give them permission to softly step into something and to feel it and nourish versus trying to slap themselves awake. What do you think of that?
I think that that's probably true. And we are meant to have refined senses. Living in society tends to dull our senses a great deal. You should be able to feel the change in the air currents in a room on the hairs of your arm, believe it or not. Neurologically, you have the potential to do that. The human eye, the retina of the eye, can perceive one photon. That's fairly amazing.
So Aaron says, makes sense. When I train at the best of my performance, I have a fluid awareness of my body and my environment.
Yeah, and the kind of training that you're doing, the grappling training, you have to have a full body awareness, because if you don't, you're going to miss all sorts of cues that are going to tell you what the guy is going to try and do next. So I consider that a superior way to develop certain of these attributes. There are a lot of movements that are coming out now that I think do this. One of the ones that I'm very impressed with is the fighting monkey stuff. I consider fighting monkey to be maybe the Gurdjieff movements for the 21st century. In the sense of they're designed to break down your habitual movements and get your awareness moving in totally different ways. It's very cool stuff. And I'm not being paid to say this. I don't know the guy who created it. I know a couple of people who train it and teach it, and they aren't paying me either. But if you get a chance to check that out, I highly recommend it.
I've done it twice, fighting monkey, and it is brilliant, brilliant work. The only aspect I found missing was relaxation. And that's why I haven't given up stretch therapy, is the capacity to be able to be truly deeply relaxed is something our culture, the industrialized culture, does not understand. They think they're relaxed, but they actually haven't felt what true deep relaxation is. So fighting monkey can tip someone, I think, into the extreme movement work, which can freak, a lot of people out. But what I did find was it's filling in gaps in coordination, particularly, that is missing in everybody's movement. And that's what I love, absolutely loved it. So just even looking at parts that work really well for whatever stage of life you're in, I think is really important, because I think that's something Mushtaq and I talked about, that the older you get, be mindful of the type of movement that you're engaging with. So when I was young, I liked it hard and fast and extreme, but now not so much. But there are moments when it has been useful to have that capacity, but it's about engaging appropriately. So fighting monkey made me think about things in a very 3D way. So not just cardinal points, but as you say, the missing gaps in, it's infinite, that you could be stretching this way, but actually you might need to go that way or this way or down. And that made me think, oh, that's different. So yes, I strongly and highly recommend people do fighting monkey for different reasons. But as again, nothing ever stands alone. Not even what I do stands alone. You have to take things appropriately and use discernment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an excellent point, because what comes up for me in the midst of this conversation, we do need to kind of find, the window of tolerance and then just push gently against those walls, because for some people, it's almost like there's an internal hyper awareness. And so then you have to figure out, how do you cope with that? How do you avoid setting off those, it's kind of like a panic state. I know for me, for instance, I think at this point I can talk and think about like vagus nerve stuff, and that doesn't make me like freak out. But there was a point where it was like weirdly emotionally distressing for me to think about those things inside my body. And I found over time that's become so much easier, because I allowed myself to gradually lean into thinking in those internal ways. So other people are going to have their own weird quirks around that, and that's okay. And you can also grow to not be so activated by those things. But it's about pacing, and it is about discernment. Yes. Yep.
And Zainab,
yeah, we have a few thoughts and comments, but I just wanted to allow us to get through the topic we were touching on there. Yeah, Cherie suggested, well, first of all, Mustaqim had the question, any daily recommended exercises to improve the sense of embodiment / awakening, and how much time should one spend on the exercises? And Cherie, for instance, mentioned the finger circles exercise.
Finger circles are good. We love finger circles here. We may be the monks of the finger circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. which I always wanted to be the monks of cool, but you know, I'll settle for circles. And the answer is, as a matter of fact, as of once we're done with this talk, I'm going to put out the first lesson of the Bagua practice, which has been a long time coming. And that is a very good practice for getting into your body. The circle walking that it is part of this is, I think, a wonderful way to get embodied. And as Zainab points out, the stick lessons are also good for this. In some ways, the working with a tool is a little bit more advanced because yeah, and I will put a link to the Fighting Monkey channel down here in the description, so you can all find it there.
You were talking about stick exercises.
Yes, the thing is, and here's a wonderful thing about how our neurology works is, and I've mentioned this before, if I put a stick or a sword in my hand, my brain basically extends itself into whatever is in my hand. So the stick becomes part of my body. My neurology senses things through it. This is why a blind person can use a cane and find their way, because their nervous system has incorporated the cane. And this is another part of embodiment that we don't usually get into, is the idea of we are able to embody more than just what is inside our skin. You know, the highest level sword fencers, that sword is not metaphorically, they are not metaphorically one with their sword. They are literally one with their sword. Their sword is an extension of their neurology. And the really good ones, when they cross their sword with another sword, they incorporate that sword into their neurology. And the masters, the real masters, incorporate not just the other person's sword, but the other person into their own neurology, so that the other person is giving them all of the information that they need to know in their movement. And it's a very, very interesting phenomena. The times that I've touched that have been beyond what I can even talk about. And you don't just find that with swords. You can find that if, well, like if I haven't seen Noor for a while and I come in and she gives me a big hug and I give her a big hug, our neurology intermeshes. We're like giving each other feedback through our own embodiment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Cherie notes that Joseph Frucek is the founder of Fighting Monkey.
Yeah, I don't know.
Joseph Frucek. Like I said, link down below. So that's basically what I got to say about this. What else do you got to say, Noor?
I mean, I touched on the thing that I find important because, you know, I think because so many of us in this community are involved in martial arts and stuff and tend to be very active, there could be this emphasis on wanting more extreme sensations and stuff like that. But I mean, I come from the other end of it, where sometimes you need to mellow out the sensations in order to feel comfortable enough to have presence and to stay with it. So I find that that has its own challenges, and breath practice can help with that. So I think it's important to practice that when, I mean, we automatically do that. If we're trying to do a void practice or whatever, we're already engaging in breath work as part of that exercise. So that certainly helps. Yep.
All right, any last thoughts?
A couple of them. One of them is about how senses can be entangled with each other.
Oh yes, that's actually a lot of fun. Synesthesia, we like that.
Well, not just that exactly. I've got a book, I can track it down, but there's an exercise in it where you look at a very black horizontal line and a very black vertical line. And then you realize, if your attention is brought to it, that when you're looking at the vertical line, you are also drawing yourself up to match it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I would like to know the title of this book. Perhaps you can post the title in the forum.
I can do that. And personally, sometimes when I'm paying attention, if I'm looking at something that's moving, I will feel it in my chest as though there's a stage for what I'm seeing. I don't know how common anything like that is, but.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but it's worth taking a look at for sure.
Yeah, there's also the Taoist thing of sensing the space around you.
Yeah, which is very much like the void practice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure the Taoists stole that from us.
Who stole it from who?
Well, of course, they stole it from us.
Of course.
Of course. We would never steal it from them unless it was really cool. Any more thoughts, Nancy?
No, I mean, I find, that I've got so little range here, quite frustrating. This is what I've got, is 90 degrees. I mean, there's things I could try, but.
Yeah, don't try until you can talk to somebody who actually knows what they're doing with that. Otherwise, you're going to end up maybe hurting yourself.
I know not to force it.
Yeah.
Gentle circular movements or something.
Yeah, I mean, the key in all of this is not to force anything when it's not the time for it. I mean, you should never force it, but I mean, things open up gradually given the opportunity and the means.
I'll show you a stretch after the recording.
Okay.
All right. Any other last thoughts?
I liked Aaron's comment in the chat about feeling the feedback. And I think that's the thing, that once you sense something in your body, it's giving you information. If you're using all of your senses and your intuition, then what are you going to do about that feedback? So feeling that feedback and then actually doing something about it is the next part, the decision that you make. And so in part to Nancy, not rushing, that's why we always say move slowly with full awareness, because you can always back out of something.
Right. Yeah.
Never hit yourself if you do that. Never. So you just pay attention. Okay, that's enough. That's the range today. Back away. And that's quite all right. And that goes with most things. The intuition is giving you that feedback of what next? Do I dive deeper or do I move away? Only you know. Only you can sense that. Only you decide.
Thanks, Sheree.
All right. Well then, with no further ado, let us say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for joining us. And as I said, feel free to leave us feedback, comments, thoughts, comments, thumbs up, thumbs down. Find us on Facebook. Thanks for everything. And thanks to everyone here who's joining us for the live talk. You guys have offered a lot of good insights, and
Yep.
we really appreciate that.
Yeah, if it wasn't for you guys, it would just be a couple of talking heads here. So without y'all, this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
All right, take care, and we will catch you next week.